Your fifth album, Black Lines, was released on the 9th of October last year, just under a year ago. What was the creative process when writing this album?
Well, just in general, as a band, we all write music, so there's a lot of material that comes to the table. But what I guess was interesting about Black Lines is because we write individually for the most part, the fact that we came to the table with a bunch of tracks that worked well as far as being darker, more minor, maybe a little bit darker subject matter and that sort of thing was coincidence more than anything else. So it was really interesting how it all came about, but of course we always get together before we actually record a record. We all have our little home studios and we work on tons of material and actually that's what I'm doing right now. I've been doing all day in my time off. I'm just working on new material, even though we won't record for a long time right now. It's just getting ideas out. And with that process, once we all got together with these ideas and we send them across email to each other to kind of get a vibe, and maybe that fueled the fire a little bit for the vibe that came out. But in the end, cumulatively, everybody was just kind of on the same page for a darker feel. And so when we sat down and we get together in a house and we lived there for a month together just working on these tracks and figuring out the best stuff that we have for that's sitting on the table, it just made sense to do something like that. And, I'm really proud of it. I think it's a really good record. I think everybody was really stoked on it. Overall, as far as something that felt cohesive, something that felt like you could listen through the whole thing and kind of get a really nice, solid album vibe. I feel like we hadn't really accomplished that quite as well as we had since A Lesson in Romantics, in my opinion, for an overall feel for a record. And I'm not likening it to that record in any kind of way. I'm just saying as a cohesive feel.
Do you feel like this is the best album that has been produced so far?
Not necessarily. I think I guess it's a really hard thing to pinpoint.
That's true.
Of course, an album's a collective, and singles are singles, so I've fallen in love with a lot of different songs on many of our records, and those kind of bleed into my overall feel of this band, and I think it does for our fans too. But it's hard to say what a favorite record is as a whole. I guess if I had to say, I guess I would say yes, because it's so current and it's something most people and artists are into what they're currently working on. So.
Yeah. Throughout this album, Black Lines, and other albums, there's a mix of heavier and softer songs. What songs do you, as a guitarist and a band, do you like to perform best on stage?
Really anything. Honestly, as a guitarist, it's riffs, of course. I'd be more partial to something that feels good in the guitar. At the same time, performing songs live, really it's about the song. I think about the whole band the whole time. It's never an individual effort necessarily, and maybe a lot of that because I'm playing rhythm. I'm playing rhythm guitar, but even the simplest songs, or something that doesn't even have a really strong riff behind it, but vocally really steals the show, I'm just as into as I am, something like Let's Be Honest or Hollow on Black Lines, something that's really guitar driven. That again is another one of those weird ones. But yeah, I think when you're in a band too, it's key to be thinking about the big picture and not so much just what you're doing. But yeah, of course, I guess you have a little soft spot for some of those rockier songs overall, the things that drive home on the guitar.
Yeah. When Mayday Parade first formed, what were your biggest influences, and what bands did you aspire to be like?
I think Taking Back Sunday is definitely a big one. I know, The Used is a big one. Further Seems Forever is a really good example of a band that I feel like you could see a lot of things that we kind of take from that sort of style. Saves the Day, bands like that. I mean, there's tons that I'm missing, and of course it's hard to think back 10 years ago and exactly what I was listening to.
Yeah.
But those are the strong ones that have always stayed.
Does everyone always get along with each other in the band? Is there like one member that acts as a leader, or does everyone take equal part in everything?
Everyone takes equal part. It's pretty much a democracy. I mean, everybody has equal vote on all matters, even things that don't even matter. So it can be a little tedious at times making decisions because of that, but we overall get the best results that way, I think, and it's always been that way. So yeah, I believe that's how we work as a band, and we'll always have, like, even in bands that I was in when I was younger, and I've always been in bands with Derek. Like from 7th grade on, we've always played music together, and I guess maybe that a lot of that comes from a mentality that we had as kids, you know, and then a lot of it also too kind of comes with the culture of the scene, or at least used to. I think maybe more so you start to see a lot of kind of put together bands around an individual artist. You know, the world's kind of moved that way. I mean, maybe it's always been that way, but maybe what I should say is that sort of dynamic for bands has kind of infiltrated this scene where it didn't used to. When we were younger, I feel it was much more popular or prevalent in the scene to have very equal, you know, sharing type bands like us.
Yeah. Mayday Parade came to Australia in 2014 for Soundwave. How was that experience, and what are you looking forward to most about coming back to Melbourne?
Yeah, we're always excited to get back to Australia, and Soundwave is really great. It's sad that they're not doing it anymore.
Yeah,
maybe somebody else will pick it up in the future. But Soundwave's an amazing tour. We've done it a couple times. You get to play with some really good bands. There's amazing crowds out there. We've had huge crowds when we've played Soundwave, and that tour in itself has helped us as a band a lot in Australia, because any large festival you can get on in any international country is key for building a band. But yeah, overall, I think maybe like English-speaking countries, just in general, you know, that we're going to do well in. But yeah, Soundwave was a huge key to that, and yeah, we love coming to Australia. It's short and sweet. The plane ride over sucks, but otherwise,
it's a long flight.
A blast.
What's your favourite place to tour, do you think, like out of all the places that you've been? Well,
it's really sad, but we don't do very well in Japan at all. To the point that we can't even really get back over there and make logistical sense out of it. But Japan is definitely our favorite, you know, country that we've ever visited and had an opportunity to tour. And we've spent a lot of time there. We've done many tours there, but we never picked up steam. And I guess, you know, that's just one of those places that's really weird for bands. Either, you know, you could be nothing where you come from and be huge in Japan, or you could be, you know, the best band in, you know, out there. I wouldn't say in the world, because usually, you know, in the world that means you kind of, it's all encompassing. But yeah, for the most part, like, yeah, you could be a great band in the States and nobody gives two shits about you, you know, in a place like Japan or a lot of others, you know, not so fluently speaking English countries. So it's a shame, but that's my favorite place.
Yeah, well, it seems like a pretty cool place. I haven't been there, but I definitely want to go there sometime.
Oh, I tell everybody that I talk to, like, yeah, go to Japan. If you're going to go anywhere international for any amount of time, and you have a choice, like, go to Japan. That's the place, you know. But yeah, we haven't been everywhere, but we've been to at least 15 different countries.
Wow.
So, and that's a top spot.
Yeah, that's great. When you're writing songs, do you take the ideas for songwriting from things that are going on in your everyday life that's going on at the time? Sometimes they can flow out that way. You know, those songs are usually pretty quick. Like, you can just write them out, and you know, and a lot of times those are the best ones when it just flows and comes out, and what you're trying to speak about comes out. But more often than not, when I'm writing a song, it's usually a lot more about one line or something that I've had in my head, and something I feel, something. It's usually got a melody to it if I have the lyrical line already. Yeah.
And from that, it's a bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of blah, 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 speaking into a mic, and sounds that feel right for like a certain line, a certain melody. And then in the end, what happens is you end up creating this story, and it usually makes sense. Not every song that we have makes sense. It's kind of like 90s rock, and in a lot of ways with some of our songs. But the ones that do make sense, the ones that I like to write, end up. I need a story. I don't like just writing a bunch of lines that sound cool. I like putting something together that makes sense. And usually they kind of paint themselves out based around one key line that you have. It's not necessarily that I'm going to write about my girlfriend, or I'm going to write about this breakup I had, or a bad day I had. That's a really hard thing to do. It has to just sort of come together in the end like a big puzzle.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for talking to me today, Brooks. It was great to have you.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate it. Thanks for the interview.
No worries. Have a listen to Mayday Parade's most recent album, Black Lines. It has loud, soft and heavy moments and is definitely worth the listen. Mayday Parade are performing in Melbourne on the 8th and 9th of October at Arrow on Swanston on the 8th, which is all ages, and 170 Russell on the 9th, which is 18 plus, and unfortunately the second show is sold out. However, you can still buy tickets to the first show, the all ages show, at selecttouring.com.au. Thank you for Brooks.